Welcome to Sailing Stories. I'm your host, Jerome Rand. Today, I thought I would do the top 3 misconceptions about solo sailing. So, just so you know, I've gone and spent almost 500 days out at sea alone. 3 of the trips have been more than 75 days, and one of them was 271 days, all alone out at sea on my little boat. And I always get asked a few of the same questions, and people seem to just have this idea in their head. And I wanted to sort of clarify, I guess. I thought it might be kind of interesting to know. The first one, and the absolute number one thing that people think about solo sailing, is that we never get to really sleep. And for a lot of the sailing that happens, if it's near the coast or if it's along shipping lanes, then absolutely, you don't really get to sleep very often if there are other ships around. However, if you're offshore, like crossing the Atlantic or going from the Caribbean to the East Coast, there's going to be quite a few days where you don't see another ship the entire time. And when you're doing that, you actually can get quite a bit of sleep. I, every once in a while, am known to be able to sleep for 4 to 6 hours without being interrupted. Part of the reason for that is the AIS, or Automatic Identification System, which all commercial vessels and the vast majority of sailboats all have. And it's a way for you to set an alarm, which tells you if there's a ship within 6 or 12 miles of your position. And even if it's not going to hit you, it goes off, you wake up, you check it, and then you avoid a collision. And if you go further afield out into the middle of the ocean, you might go a week or two without seeing anybody. And for those who are daring enough, you can go all the way down to the Southern Ocean, where I went over 2.5 months without ever seeing another ship. And in fact, in 4.5 months, from the Cape of Good Hope to Cape Horn, I only saw 4 ships, 2 of which were just south of New Zealand. And that was within just a couple of days. So you actually can get quite a bit of sleep out there, and you get so used to the motion and the noises of the boat that it actually sometimes can put you to bed. And usually once I get out there after a day or two, I sleep pretty sound. The second one is a little bit more on the technical side, but with a sailboat, you have all these lines and halyards and outhauls and all these things that you end up having to haul and pull and adjust and all that. And I've always been told by people who are wondering about solo sailing is if I lead every single line straight back to the cockpit so that I can do everything from back there. And this is actually something in my own experience that I don't feel is necessary. And I think sometimes it actually isn't a good thing, because if you spend most of your time doing everything from the cockpit, you're not traveling around the boat enough and frequently enough to notice when things might be going wrong. And so when I'm putting a reef in the mainsail or taking sails in or putting them up, I'm actually doing most of that from the mast or all the way up on the forward part of the boat. And that allows me to really be in touch with what's going on and any wear and tear that's actually happening out with some of the equipment on the boat. And then the last one, number 3, and this one's a big one as well, I suppose, and that is the loneliness. Do you get very lonely out there? If you're all alone on a boat in the ocean, it must be terribly lonely and you must get sad and all this sort of stuff. In all actuality, I would say the loneliness factor might come into play maybe about 5% of the time, if that. And that really is because you're surrounded and you're very connected to the weather that's going around, the boat that you're on, and just basically your own sort of life at that point. I call it low-level input, and essentially the longer you're out at sea, the more in tune with just Mother Nature and this sort of slow life sailing you get. And eventually you start realizing that you don't need all the distractions that you normally have. And when you have other people on a boat, it actually can make it more difficult to get into that mindset where you just really are in the moment, at the moment, all the time. And I find that typically after about 5 days to 10 days, my brain sinks right into that. And I enjoy the time out there just being able to stare at the clouds or the ocean or lie in my bunk and read a book. And I find that those things really only come about when you're out there solo sailing. So those are my top three sort of misconceptions or questions that people always ask about solo sailing. And I hope you enjoy it. And if you've got a few of them that you'd like to hear more about, just go ahead and throw them in the comments, and I'll do another one of these because this is super easy. The editing is just non-existent. All right, thanks for watching. Have a good one.